So, welcome back. And you've probably heard that 3 million users have decided to not use ChatGPT anymore. The reason for that is because OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, decided to sign a contract with the Department of War, which allows the Department of War to essentially use their models for any lawful use. And I decided, I did the same, right? Like I quit ChatGPT, but I decided to read the statement, right? Because if you look at the statement, one, they're saying they're much safer now, and two, they can guarantee certain guardrails, which we'll look into it. And three, they also claim they are way better in these kind of like contracts with governmental agencies than Anthropic is. And from what we know from the last years, it seems like the employees in Anthropic have a stronger moral compass than OpenAI, right? Because if you remember the time where Meta was pouching off these incredible scientists for the AI Frontier Lab, there were so many that left OpenAI. The I think the CTO Mira Murati left OpenAI because of disputes with Sam Altman, and she went on to found her own startup, which I still don't know what it's about. While with Anthropic, you didn't see that shift, right? Like, still the same CEO, I think still the same C-level executives as like 4 years ago. They haven't changed. So I'm assuming in terms of company culture, right, and in terms of moral compass, Anthropic can claim that they are better suited for any governmental kind of like contracts if they wanted to do that. And for this contract that OpenAI signed, they told the Department of War, we're not doing that. And I guess it's time to see why, right? So OpenAI signed the deal. And what essentially they tell their users on the company platform is they signed the deal to provide the Department of War their models with incredibly safe guardrails so that three things do not happen: mass surveillance of US nationals and citizens. So you might be thinking, okay, well, makes sense, right? The Department of War currently could be deciding any day that they generally don't care about this law, right? Because there are current laws that still protect nationals and citizens from mass surveillance through AI companies. But assume the Department of War kind of gets a law through Congress where, they say, well, we'd like to mass surveil because then we can predict, for instance, crimes and we make everything better. There's actually film for this scenario where Tom Cruise plays in it, but I forgot the name. You can search it up. So that's the thing. Now, OpenAI responds the following: they will not change these guardrails. So apparently, if the Department of War decides one day to say, well, we want to introduce mass surveillance for your models, OpenAI would be saying, well, no, we will drop out of the contract, which I don't believe to be fair because the Department of War probably pays them pretty well. So that was the one thing. Second thing, um, they're not willing to do is to power autonomous weapons. Now, there are startups like Anduril Industries that use autonomous weapons. No, I'm not quite sure whether OpenAI, for instance, is powering them, because then the argument wouldn't make sense. Now, they went in and still signed the contract and saying we will not power autonomous weapons. And OpenAI is also saying that they have people on board on the Department of War and their own AI security team to make sure it never happens. Anthropic, in their own statement, said that one, the current approach to these weapons is not feasible for us to get AI involved with. That is, it's not safe, right? And Anthropic is also saying that one, the safeguards, they don't protect the models from going rogue. Because again, models, they are unpredictable. There are still ways to jailbreak these models. That is to let them do whatever you want, even though it was programmed to not do so. And Anthropic told the Department of War, hey, we will sign maybe the contract if we can help you in terms of R&D for these weapons. Department of War said no, and that is essentially one of the reasons why Anthropic said we're not signing the deal. Now, OpenAI didn't really care about that. They said, well, happens. We just trust they will empower these autonomous weapons with our models. I'm not quite sure whether the AI model kind of like expert team will ever report when the Department of War is using it for these autonomous weapons, but we'll see. It will like come out eventually. And then there's one more kind of like thing they added that Anthropic did not mention, which is they are not letting the Department of War use their models for advanced social credit systems, something that is currently in place in China, where you are being judged based on how you behave in the public sphere. That is, for instance, you can't jaywalk. Otherwise, you get points deducted from your social credits account. I'm not quite sure how it works. I should read into that, but essentially that is the idea. It is closely tied to mass surveillance, but I'm not quite sure why they decided to list it as another point. I do think that they mentioned this point just to say that, hey, we have this additional point that Anthropic does not have, which kind of implies that they thought this more through, which I'm not on board with, but that is just a hypothesis. Like, I can't prove it. So those are the three things. No to mass surveillance, no to automated weapons, no to advanced social credit systems. And OpenAI tells that they have incredibly safe guardrails and rules to have their models not break these three red lines. Do we believe that? I don't know, right? Because there were so many experiments, for instance, where other AI models nudged other AI models to jailbreak and hack and all the stuff that's supposed not to be happening. Because these models, from how they're built, we don't know, for instance, how they come up with answers because we have lost track of how information goes into a system and then comes out. That is essentially the black box problem of AI. I'm not quite sure whether the current updates, where you can kind of see how the model reasons, are enough to say that we have solved the black box AI issue. To I forgot what I wanted to say. Wait, let me restart. So essentially, what I said is sometimes you can see how the model reasons, right? But I don't think it's enough to say that we have solved the black box AI issue. Because again, how do you know how the model came to this reasoning step? Like you can't see it, right? And so I think based on that, and based also on the fact that OpenAI says that we want to give democracies the best tools, even though we know that we imply a risk because we have the technology, doesn't make sense to me. Like OpenAI is saying the following, says the same. We have technology that implies a risk to everyone, but we still sign contracts with governmental agencies like the Department of War. And if you have read 1984, you know that this name is not random, who then say, well, we trust our models are safe. I don't believe that, right? And the thing with Europe is, unfortunately, we don't have any AI companies that could have taken a different path and show that, for instance, AI can be used for better things than implemented into military startups or military agencies. Because surprisingly, for instance, in Germany, I think the most valuable AI startup is Helsing. They're based in Munich and they are a military startup. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't like the trend where it's going because these contracts, they're paid incredibly well. And then it shows to other companies, hey, it's fine to do that unless your users are saying no. And it was nice to see that, for instance, users said, well, We're not playing the game because we know they will have access to our data. We know they will not use models responsibly. We know we cannot trust them, which is a valid reason because I would not trust any governmental agency with AI. Like, obviously, you have goals that you will achieve by going into your private sphere. Because how else would you be using AI to create a sense of security? Same goes for Palantir. It's the same story. Anyways, we have covered OpenAI. We kind of covered why Anthropic is not willing to do it. And I think we also covered the kind of trend in 2 sentences of AI going into military space. I think that's it, right? Maybe there's one thing to mention. So Anthropic and OpenAI, they say that they want democracies to have the best tools against their adversaries, right? Now, does this make sense, right? Because obviously you want to protect yourself. But I'm not quite sure, for instance, with current conflicts, how you can say that democracies have a certain privilege to be more technologically advanced when they might be the first to fall back into systems that are not democracies, right? Specifically, if you look at certain countries, even in Europe, even in the US, you still see a shift to right-winged parties, from which quite a lot of them are extreme. And you're wondering at some point that, this is not necessarily democracy. Like, the direction you are going for is not a democracy at the very end. And to say that we want to give you the best tools to protect yourself from systems that you will become in a few years is not reasonable for me. But again, I'm not sitting in the boardrooms of OpenAI and Anthropic to decide that, but I guess I can still comment on it. So yeah, that's it. If you stick around until now, feel free to subscribe. Apart from that, I think that's it. Yeah. And with that, see you for the next video.